Wow, that intro never fails, does it? And welcome back to another edition of the Back Burner Flames Nation Prospect Show. Mike Gould here along with you. And to my left today is Ryan Pike. And to my right today is a guest who we have had on before. I will describe as a past and future guest here on the Back Burner Show. Byron Bader from hockeyprospecting.com. Byron, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pike, this is one of the best days of the year for our show, and there's only 5 or 6 days that we do this show, but always fun to sort of, we spend a lot of time talking to folks who have very similar ways of scouting players, and they have traditional methods and what have you, talking to scouts and coaches and teams and what have you. And today we just talk numbers. It's really just sort of talking projectabilities, it's talking probabilities, and we're going to get into a lot of it. But first of all, Pike, it's been a couple of weeks. How you doing?
I'm good.
Doing good.
We're here to poke holes in the eye test.
To poke holes in the eye test. Well, I mean, I'm the only one here not wearing glasses.
Oh, damn! We should start a podcast called the Eye Test.
We should
Trademark. No one can steal that now.
Pike, you were saying, is this the Brzustewicz anecdote? Is this a showable topic?
The idea that we wanted to see if Hunter Brzustewicz will play against his brother next year.
No.
Not
that one. Okay, we'll leave that for another time.
I just think it'd be fun to see next year in the AHL. I think he's in most of the year NHLer. Hunter, his younger brother Henry, Los Angeles King prospect, just got signed. I think it'd be fun to have them play each other early in the season, and then for Hunter to go to the NHL.
Byron, what are your thoughts on the Brzustewiczes?
I like them. I like our Brzustewicz more.
There we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Can never remember how to actually write his name down. So
BRZ.
Yeah, I normally just go with the BRZ and then just end it. But they both look pretty decent. But like Hunter actually profiles even a little bit better. And he's kind of like he profiles really well in the model, and he had the big jump here in his D+1, which really kind of put him on the map. And then it kind of took him a little bit to adjust to the AHL. It took him half a season or a season to adjust there, but now he's kind of got it figured out. And I think he's a really solid prospect. He's kind of, in terms of the Flames top 5, he's probably like the 5th best prospect or 4th best prospect. So yeah.
Your model because, and we're going to bring it up on the screen. You put out earlier this month, your top 32 rankings of the 32 NHL teams based on the strength of their prospect pools. Now, this is done over at hockeyprospecting.com, and the Flames have sort of been climbing on the list in recent years. And if you can see it here up on the screen, Calgary now up at 3, behind only the San Jose Sharks and the Montreal Canadiens. And as you said, Brzustewicz is in that top 5. He's at number 5, as there's a link that is sort of attached on your website that sort of delves into the top 5 from each team. Brzustewicz at 5. Your list still includes guys like Zane Parekh and Matt Viggo and correspondingly players from other teams as well, like for San Jose, Michael Misa, and I think even for Montreal, like Ivan Demidov.
Yeah.
So there's a fair amount of guys, sort of influencing it who are already in the league to a certain degree. But still, how impressive is it that the Flames have gotten to the point where they are now without having a single pick under Conroy above number 9?
Yeah. And I mean, it's the way that kind of like top 5 part works anyways is sort of, you have to cross over 100 games, and then you have to have been drafted within a certain range. So it's part, like Lane Hudson and Celebrini, and these guys are sort of graduating out, so they don't count anymore. So then their pool kind of, goes down a little bit. Whereas Calgary's guys that we've added recently, they haven't crossed over the 100 games. So that's sort of the play on it. But yeah, it's really only been, the 2024 and 2025 drafts where they've had excellent drafts, both of them, model wise. And they've just added so much to the pool that, they've really shot up the rankings. Like I think prior to the 2024 draft, when they had the 2023 draft, which was not very good, they were like in the late teens. And then, a year after that, they were probably hovering around that 10-11 spot. And then now they're all the way up to 3. So, I mean, after this draft where they have 6 picks in the top 62, like they could be, maybe not the 1 spot, but they could be in the 2 spot by the end of this draft. So
Well, and I'll sort of just take people through the top 5 that you have here. I think, Yasmin, we've got the screenshot of the Flames sort of blurb here. Parekh, Gridden, Reschny, Wyttenbach, Brzustewicz. And only one of these players is a top 10 pick. 3 of them are first-round picks. Wyttenbach's a 5th, and Brzustewicz is a 3rd. The teams that are above the Flames in this ranking, San Jose and Montreal, I mean, you're talking Montreal, Ivan Demidov, Michael Haig, David Reinbacher. Those are all top picks. Demidov and Reinbacher are both top 5 picks. Alexander Zharovsky, who is a very sort of sexy dark horse pick from last year's draft, who is sort of already being seen as a maybe should have gone top 10, sort of almost like profiling like Kaprizov was at this time. And then Bryce Pickford, who just capped off a crazy year with Medicine Hat and has been in the dub for a long time. And then San Jose, I mean, sort of the rich getting richer. Now they have the number 2 pick this year, but Igor Chernyshov, Sam Dickinson, Michael Misa, Quentin Musty, Luca Cagnoni. Those first 4 players are all sort of first-round caliber prospects, and Cagnoni is sort of a later pick, but not certainly sort of on a similar path as Brzustewicz, I would say. So, yeah. I mean, it just sort of goes to show, though, what you mentioned in this little blurb here is the depth of the Flames prospect pool is kind of not quite unparalleled, but it's right there with the very best.
Yeah, for sure. Like they have about 19 skaters in their system that kind of shows some semblance of, a decent NHLer probability. So it's kind of anything over about 30%. So they have 19. So I think that puts them 2nd or 3rd in that ranking, behind basically Carolina and the Habs, really. So, I mean, again, and they've built that out mostly over 2 very, very good drafts in the last 2 years. So, I mean, to build out that fast and then adding to it with, the trades of Kadri and stuff like that. Like they add to that pool a little bit with guys that could be good bets to make the NHL. And they have the decent top 5 that, Parekh certainly looks like he's going to be a star or superstar. Wyttenbach is, taken the NCAA by fire. Like
I think we're legally required to call him NCAA leading scorer, Ethan Wyttenbach.
Yeah, exactly. And like that jump that he made, like he was kind of just like a okay looking prospect when he was drafted. Like I kind of, he wasn't a guy high on my list.
Intriguing.
He's an older player, but I was like, oh, it looks like a decent bet. But then to basically like double his equivalency like that in the NCAA, which is essentially the hardest North American league for a non-pro player to play by far, is really impressive. And it doesn't happen that often that you do that much better from your draft year to your D+1 year coming from that sort of archetype. So yeah, they have like all these pieces in there where, they have a good grouping of them that'll probably be 3rd or 4th liners, but then they have another grouping that'll be mid-tier guys. And then they have, some of those top guys like Gridden too is one of those guys that
who do you see as the potential stars there? Because I know in your model, like you talk about, like you if you draft NHLers, like you're a townie like we are, you've had a long memory. You can probably recall when the Flames, they struggled to find AHL players in the entry draft. And now, we're talking about regularly, you're going to have players in the next couple of years that would be slam dunk to sign to pro deals in the next couple of years that they just won't have spots for because they've gotten good at drafting. So like for your perspective, from your model, who's your model see as the potential stars or the most probable stars in the Flame system right now?
Obviously Parekh, like profile's excellent. So I think he's going to explode in the next couple of years. Gridden he didn't have that much star potential, I would say, based on how he looked. But I mean, that kind of back half that he played in the NHL, where I think he had basically like 40 points, like on pace for 40 points type thing. Like, I mean, that's kind of jumping him up a level. Wyttenbach is, I'd say, kind of like a 30-40% chance. And then you have Reschny, who didn't pop off the table yet in the NCAA, but I mean, he was only drafted a year ago. You still have a lot of runway there. So certainly Parekh, and then they might have one more in terms of those other 3 guys, I would say.
The guy who I think I'm most curious about in the next 12 months, and you mentioned him, is Cole Reschny. Just because he is that center that the Flames have needed for a long time. He's the first center they've drafted, the first like natural center they've drafted in the first round in a while, since I guess you could say Connor Zary. But before that, I mean, since Bennett, I mean, they haven't drafted a lot of centers in the first round really ever. And so, and also, Yaz, I think we got the 2025 rankings from Bader as well. Just another guy who the Flames got lower than people maybe thought they would. They get him at 18, and there were people who were stumping for Reschny in the early teens, and I think your model had him as high as 11 entering last year's draft. And I mean, there are some players who were drafted ahead of Reschny who aren't even here, or they are here, but they're way at the bottom of this top 32. Guys like Jack Nesbitt and Kashawn Aitchison and various other players, right? So
Roger McQueen,
yeah. So it's, to me, that's really interesting because I mean, you look there, and Ben Kindle, Cole Reschny, born within 2 weeks of each other, have very similar profiles. Reschny's a bit more of a pro-style build. And I remember chatting with a buddy of mine who works for an NHL team last summer, and we were sort of debating which of those two had a better chance of being a center in the NHL. And I was sort of saying Reschny, and he was sort of saying Kindle, and wouldn't you know it, Kindle's already an NHL center. But by the same token, like if Cole Reschny follows a certain progression in the NCAA, where do you see him maybe topping out as in the NHL?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a bit too early to tell. Like, I think after this next year, we'll have a really good gauge. So if he kind of, plateaus again at sort of like a point per game in the NCAA, then I think we might be kind of looking at more of like a middle six guy, like a Morgan Frost type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if he explodes, which I think there's some good potential to do so now that he's kind of adjusted to the NCAA. And, I think he finished with like an equivalency in the high 30s or something. So if he kind of gets into like the mid 40s or even the 50s or something, that's where, he could be certainly like a 1C, like maybe like a Matthew Barzal, who profiles very similar at the same stage of their prospect career. So yeah, so I think this is a really big year to see what happens there and see, does he find his game and go up a whole nother level? Then I think we could be like, okay, this is our guy. Or, is he just a piece that you kind of add to hopefully a building team over the years? So,
well, and the interesting thing to me is obviously last year was the year of the centers for the Calgary Flames. They got 3 with their first 3 picks. They got Reschny, Potter, and Stock Cilius. Cullen Potter's a funny one, isn't he? Because he's going to Michigan State now after 2 years at ASU. Goes to ASU sort of a year ahead of schedule. Was supposed to sort of stick around with the U.S. national team development program. Goes to college, puts up numbers that I think were okay. But also considering the fact that he's a 17-year-old in college, you can sort of look at that sort of comparison between guys who scored at the rate that Potter did, as getting about 20 points in 30 games in his draft year. And there's a lot of guys who maybe haven't turned into stars, but sort of Camilleri type prospects who, I mean, Camilleri was one of those guys back in the early 2000s, but in the years since, there have been a handful of guys who have gone to the NCAA a year ahead of schedule. What does that maybe say about Cullen Potter's chances, maybe in relation to Reschny as well?
Yeah, like it doesn't happen that often that you're sort of, in college when your draft year is obviously past like the late September and October, November, December guys. So it happens pretty rarely, but I think he's still born in January. Mm-hmm. So he is like, his whole life, he's basically been one of the older prospects on his team because of that January birth date. And he's pretty small, but yeah, like it's not that common that you're in college regardless. It's a little bit better if it's, you're kind of one of those, like Jonathan Taves type thing where you're born like in the spring or summer and then you're in college. Cause then you're like legitimately supposed to be in grade 12 and you're just there in university already and, like a Div 1 program. So yeah, like I think it's pretty impressive. His profile is kind of like, I would be pretty surprised if he like works out to like, like a star type thing. Like if he has this like Jake Gensel type thing where it's like, it could be okay. And then he turns into like a superstar. I'd be very surprised if that happens. But I mean, watching him just like eye test, like the way he skates is like his wide stance and how fast he is and stuff. Like I don't know if I've ever seen a player skate like that and be that fast with how he moves. So I'm very excited to see where he goes, but I feel like I wouldn't get my hopes up that he's going to be like, you know, Johnny Gaudreau type thing. Like, I think he's probably going to be like, if he makes it, like a 40-point guy. But
you mentioned the idea of like you having the weird benefit of being a spring birthday and sort of being 17th for most of your year. There are 3 probable first rounders this year who are August birthdays. Mm-hmm. Oscar Hemming, Ilya Morozov, and Tynan Lawrence, all of whom will be turning 18 6 weeks after the entry draft.
Couple
which is kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah, like that's never happened before. And like maybe part of this is, you know, the CHL agreement, and now they're just kind of like open up the floodgates to anybody. But like that has like happened. Yeah, I think in the last like 30 years where you've had a springborn player in college already like that, I think it's happened like 3 times in 3 decades. And then it happened 3 times this year. And there's Valentini too, is born in April.
Yeah, Valentini's in April, and then there's the 5th person whose name escapes me.
Yeah, I think
Verhoff is another one. Is the other one. So yeah, the 5 underclassmen who are all like 4 of them are probably going to go to the first round, maybe all 5.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
I'm curious. Okay, I'm just going to throw cards on the table. I think it's unfair to make comparisons with the young players because everybody's on their own journey, but with the trajectory of Ethan Wyttenbach, obviously, you know, Johnny Gaudreau was a guy who was small and got drafted in the 4th round because he was small, even though he had, you know, his statistical profile was just bonkers.
Yeah, he should have been late first round pick
at worst. Like
August birthday and leading the USHL in scoring in his rookie year. Yeah.
But people are like, oh, he's small, so he falls.
Yeah.
With Wyttenbach, you know, obviously, you know, he didn't have as big a statistical profile when he only had really the 1 year in what we consider a high level league.
Yeah.
At what point is it fair to start making Gaudreau comparisons? Because if you look at sort of just the apples to apples comparisons of guys of sort of, you know, obviously, I think relatively speaking, Gaudreau is, you know, born later in the year. So he was younger at the same age.
Yeah.
But going into, you know, decent programs as true freshmen and having the type of years, I think Wyttenbach actually had a better statistical performance.
He did.
At what point is it fair to make these comparisons? Because like the kid led the NCAA in scoring, and I know fans are like, when are we allowed to get excited about this kid? I know the answer is whenever you want, but like realistically, when does it start? When does, you know, sort of he has a chance of being a good player turn into something a little more tangible? Would it be 1 more year like we just saw?
I think we're already there in terms of, okay, he might be something special because, again, I mentioned it, like essentially he went from an equivalency in like the mid-20s coming from the USHL to something in like I think he's right at like 50. And so when you look at, and that older prospect, like when you look at players that have done that from their draft year to their D+1, there's like, I think there's like 5 or 6 on there. Like Rantanen is one of them. Jeremy Roenick is one of them. I think Hiponiemi is one of them. So he's kind of, you know, the one that didn't work out. And then I think Connor McMichael was sort of around it. Like you look at like the players that did it, like they basically, except for Hiponiemi, like they all made the NHL and like I think 3 out of 5 or so turned into stars. So like, I'm going to give it 1 more year. Like if he doesn't even really need to get better, but if he can replicate it and be like, you know, equivalency in like the high 40s or 50s and be like top 3 in the NCAA in scoring again, then I think it's time to get fired up about him.
He had 59 points last year, and forgive me, I'm just pulling up elite prospects. Gaudreau didn't have that many points until his junior year when he won the Hobie Baker.
When he had 80.
Yeah, when he had 80.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not thinking, okay, Ethan, 80 points, please. But like he's gonna be, you know, he's in a good program. You know, Quinnipiac was really good this year. Yeah. He was, you know, a young guy who they could shelter a bit. But then once they started figuring out he can play, he got the reins, you know, lit off. Yeah. He's going to have a full summer of training with the Flames this year. He didn't have that last year because he had a knee injury and knee surgery, and then deciding, am I going to the USHL or college, and then adjusting to college. Like he went through a lot of change. And this year it seems like, okay, he'll get a full summer of training. He'll get a full summer knowing where he's going to play and sort of mentally adjusting to that and knowing what the expectations are. Oh, and he'll probably I'd be shocked if in July we're not talking about him being at the World Junior Summer Showcase that USA Hockey holds.
Oh, it should be. Yeah.
So like,
no question.
This feels like, I don't know. I don't want to overhype kids, but if you're going to hype a kid, this feels like the type of kid who you would want to
It's
hype.
warranted. Like he's, like you mentioned, like he's older than Gaudreau was. Like Johnny was born like mid-August, and then he's born, I think, mid-February. So there's a 6-month difference, which is huge in prospect world. But he's essentially a year ahead of where Johnny was on his trajectory. So if you kind of balance that out, like there's some possibility there. So I'm going to say if he goes off again this year, then I think we have something. If he falls back and he has like an equivalency in like the 30s or something, and he's, then it's like, okay, maybe we just get like a middle sixer out of this. But if he does it again, like we're signing that guy after this year, and then
it sounds all indications are he's signing.
Got to.
Yeah.
No, I mean, based on everything that your model says, I mean, it's just so huge for guys to take these types of jumps. It's the sort of thing that a team, you can draft as high as anybody, but unless you get that sort of progression from players who you draft all around, it's not going to mean a whole lot. Yeah. And the Flames have seen it with some of their players. And Yasmin, I just sent you. I think it's good to take a step back in here and just sort of look as an overview on your model, because we have a comparison here of Wyttenbach and Matvei Gridin, two guys who have both taken enormous jumps in probabilities in your model. And I think
AHL All-Star game participant, Matvei Gridin.
Absolutely. AHL All-Star Matvei Gridin, excellent Flames rookie Matvei Gridin, who is, always in line now to be one of the top players for the Flames next year, I think. And I think we've got this card breakdown, because I think we just want to sort of show people as well who might not be familiar how it works, how it all looks. Guys, do we have it? Okay, cool. It's coming. So, Wyttenbach and Gridin. I mean, two guys who both started in the USHL. Gridin came from Muskegon. Wyttenbach, I forget, Sioux Falls. Yeah.
Sioux Falls Stampede.
And I mean, there you go. When they were drafted, little unassuming. You can see why Wyttenbach went when he did. You can see where Gridin. You can see why. And I think Gridin in your model, I want to say when he was drafted, was he in the first round? Was he in the top 32 in 2024?
I think I had him as a like honorable mention.
Something
he
like
was
that.
Nobody was talking about him, but he looked decent. Like he kind of like, I always look for that. Do they cross over like the 30s in their draft year? And he's relatively young, born in March, so he's kind of in that gray area. So I didn't have him in there, but like he was one of the guys that I kept on looking at. But I was like, nobody's talking about this guy, so then I'll bump him for this guy. But he was probably like 34, 35, call it.
So tell us how the equivalencies work, because I know there's a lot of people who think it's just as simple as saying, okay, if Matvei Gridin, 2024, he was in the USHL. If he was in the NHL that year as the exact same player, he would have scored 32 points. Is that how it works?
Yes. Yeah. That's the rough idea. So that was the original concept. Is basically like, it's translating. You score this many points in your last year in a league, the OHL or the USHL or then NCAA. And then when you go to the NHL, how much production do you have? And then it's sort of the difference. Some of these leagues, like the USHL, for instance, they never go straight to the NHL, except for Cole Sillinger. He's like the only one ever. So you kind of have to go through this route where it's like they have to go through the NCAA first. So there's a little translation equivalency that way. And then you kind of get to it from there. But then there's the major leagues like, the CHL, all three leagues there, and then all the Pro Euro leagues where they go straight into the NHL and you have a decent sample, and you're kind of looking for that equivalency of the average of how players have performed going back 30 years. And then it's sort of adjusted over the different decades or eras, as it were.
Those are quite the comparables on the Wyttenbach side. You mentioned Rantanen. I don't know if you mentioned Alexei Yashin, but
forgot about it. Besser was one I just thought of. Yeah. He looked very similar, and he came from the same program.
Yeah. So Very exciting stuff. These are just two of the comparables. But yeah, this is just sort of what one of the comparable cards looks like over at hockeyprospecting.com. And I use it throughout the year, just sort of getting you update it throughout the year. I want to say how often is it? Once a month or something like that?
Yeah, it's updated probably about 4 times throughout the year.
Okay, so once every couple months.
Yeah, as the data is sort of coming in, you get a decent sample size. I'll go through and update it, and then I'll update it at the end of the year, obviously, and after the draft and all that. Yeah,
to me, like when I'm looking at these, just my sort of shorthand in my head is that if I see a guy who's got a 30, really at any point in one of these charts, but especially, I mean, the earlier the better. If you got a guy who crosses over that 30 mark, there's something there.
Yeah, especially, like it's obviously the younger you can do it, the better. So if it's, a player born in August and he's got a 30 in his D-1 year, like that's like, okay, I'm queuing in on this guy. I mean, that happens almost never, but when it does, that's like, okay, this guy's going to be like a superstar, maybe a generational superstar type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of follows along from there. So yeah, the earlier you can get there. And the big thing too is sort of making these like jumps. So like going from a 30 to a 40 to a 50, like that's great. Whereas if you kind of stagnate or you drop down, that's, especially for the star probabilities, that's really not good, especially if you look back over history. Like players you want to see them constantly like taking another level and going up and up and up. And that's like, okay, this guy's going to be a star for sure. Whereas the ones that sort of stagnate and maybe they hold steady at like a relatively high equivalency, like something in the mid 30s or whatever, their NHLer probability will increase, but their star probability goes down.
Well, and we actually have another one queued up here, and this is the two centers we were talking about, Cole Reschny and Cullen Potter. And I think this is an interesting one as well because of what you just said, the idea of guys going up or guys sort of staying in place. And we saw with Reschny, his projection did sort of stay the same. And you can see the star probability go a little bit down.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you also have to sort of take it with the idea of he is going from the WHL to the NCAA. So there is a certain element of that there. And I think as the year went on, we saw Reschny certainly play more and get more responsibility. And I think he'll be their number one center next year. And Potter's really interesting here because I mean, those are some decent, those some decent steps up. The probabilities maybe haven't gone up as much just because I think a little smaller, a little bit older, a couple other factors, but by the same token, had he played that full season at ASU without, what was it, Pike? Was it collarbone or was it I forget. No, I think it was
something shoulder.
His arm, he was brutal hit. Going to MSU, going to be really interesting because he's playing on a much stronger program.
Do you know what the funnier thing is?
What's the funnier thing?
So originally he was supposed to go to
he was supposed to go to MSU.
25, 26. He was committed to MSU
or for 24, 25.
Because for his draft year.
Yeah.
For 2020. Yeah. No, it was
24, 25.
It was D+1. He was supposed to go. His 18-year-old year, he was supposed to spend at Michigan State. He was committed, and then he in his camp went, actually, we want to go a year early. We think playing on the U.S. national U18s.
That's right.
We need a bit more of a jump up in competition. And Michigan State didn't have the scholarship room and didn't have a roster spot for him, so he was able to decommit and go to ASU.
Instead of going to Michigan State at a normal time,
he's going as a junior.
He went to ASU early,
a 19-year-old junior.
That's right. And now he's going to MSU, which would have been his sophomore year, but instead is his junior year, which is interesting. Here's a question for you. Is there any correlation between guys who stick around in college later? Is there any correlation between guys who maybe spend less time in college having more likelihood to be a star or anything like that? Or is it more of a case by case?
No, it's normally the ones that sort of sign out of college right away tend to be like top 10 picks, or they tend to have this giant like Wyttenbach type year that sort of surprises where it's like, okay, we got to go with this guy right away, or it's a combination of both, that they're a top 10 pick and they have this giant year. So then they just have, the star profile is just higher because they just hit all those typical numbers. Whereas the ones that hang around and then they have the big years at the end and then they get signed or they get signed as free agents, those ones typically are like fringe NHLers, especially if they kind of didn't really do anything and then they dominate as like a senior in college and stuff. They barely make the NHL or
Fourth line
they
centers.
are career AHLers, you know? So like, that's the difference is, again, it's the earlier you pop off and just that continued growth. And then you're more likely to be a star from college or whatever league you come from.
Okay. As someone who does a lot of stats stuff, obviously we're all still trying to wrap our heads around what the overall ramifications of the NCAA opening up eligibility will be. And we don't even need to get into their whole 5-year thing. They're still figuring out if they're going to do or not. But have you seen the impact of the NCAA jump in competition in your numbers yet, or is it still too early for the model to really reflect it yet?
For this type of model, you have to wait a couple of years. So I'm actually just like working on like a new update on like sort of the translations and stuff. That's a better process than the original one. So stay tuned for that. But I think it'll take a couple of years to trickle out because you have to see, okay, the ones that make the jump to the NHL, like, are guys jumping from the CHL to the NHL anymore? Or no, that's being wiped out because all those guys are going to NCAA now. So now you have the CHL is just this melting pot of mediocre players and none of them actually make the NHL from there. That'll be quite a change. Or is there still enough players that stay there and then they just make the jump, or, you know, and
like, especially just the way your model's built, just the idea of like, you know, if the idea is like, okay, let's just say Cole Reschny, you know, before, kids who had an idea that they wanted to go to college, well, they couldn't go to the CHL, so they'd stay in the USHL or maybe the NAHL and then migrate through one of the leagues, and then they'd find, you know, maybe they wouldn't have as sexy a stats profile because they were on a deeper team, and so maybe they start off in sort of a lower conference and then move their way up, so they'd be a bit more transferring. Whereas now it's like, okay, if you're a prospect of note in anywhere in North America, you have a chance to play the CHL first, where the quality of competition is arguably higher, and so your impressive numbers are even more impressive given who you're doing them against. And then if you can show yourself, all of a sudden you have sort of another stepstone. It feels like the pathway and the profile for a lot of these guys, and probably the modeling for them, is going to change fairly significantly.
I think you're going to see, like, especially like the translation effect of the 3 CHL leagues, you're going to see it slowly start to decline, is my guess. But you're going to need another 2 or 3 years to sort of really start to see that. But I think it's going to, I mean, that seems to be happening just all around with like the Canadian prospects, I guess. Like, our goalie system is just atrocious.
True.
It was atrocious 10 years ago.
We have Logan Thompson as like Team Canada goalie projection for 2030. Like, really?
And he came from what? U Sports?
Yeah. From Brock.
Yeah. I was just like, even just like the ramifications, like, of, okay, like before, if you were, say, from Finland, Sweden, wherever, like one of these European powers, and you wanted to really, you know, maybe you're 17-year-old year, you might come over the import draft, or maybe you're 18 after you're drafted. Whereas now it's like, okay, like Ilya Morozov played a full year in the NCAA as a teenager.
Yeah.
And, you know, Oscar Hemming's a good example. Like, he tried to come over as an import and he had the weird contract stuff, but it feels like we're going to see even more broadly, the pathway for these kids change in a lot of really interesting ways. And like, you know, we're obviously, we're familiar with the Western League and sort of how they've, you know, I think all the Canadian leagues are trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to look? Yeah. The USHL, I think, is trying to figure out how it's going to look. I think one of the better developmental stories of the last quarter century in hockey has been the USHL essentially becoming the 4th major junior league. Yeah. I'm very curious how this is all going to turn out.
I think it's going to be not good for the CHL and Canadian hockey development in general. I think it's going to really erode their top talent over the years, but we'll see how badly.
Just have to make Simon Fraser an NCAA school again, and that'll solve everything.
Was that a thing?
That was the thing. They
had a football team.
Yeah. Well, they're playing. Their hockey team was playing exhibitions against the States.
Like Div 1 or Div 3?
Well, I don't think it was either. I think they were just sort of like NCAA, auxiliary. Auxiliary extracurricular, something like that. Yeah, no, it was a whole thing. I want to go back a little bit further before we get into 2026. Just a quick touch up on the 2024 draft as well. And we have the top 32 from your model that year as well. And this was a year where the Flames felt like they were picking directly off of your top 32 in a certain way.
That was like one of the best drafts any team has ever had model wise. Like looking at that was electric watching that happen.
Well, and some stuff here that has already aged really well. Celebrini at 1, Demidov at 2, Perek at 3. I mean, tough to really argue with that. Zeev Boyum at 4. I mean, he's already an NHLer. He's already making big strides. Consta Helenius at 6, coming off a really nice little playoff run with Buffalo, looking like a really good piece, a piece that has made them comfortable moving other players, has made up for losing guys like Yuri Kulich for the whole season and trading Isaac Rosen to Winnipeg and all sorts of different things. And Dickinson and Iginla and Catton. I mean, this is a very good top 10. Even Levshinov has had his ups and downs. Cole Hudson at 11. That's you going out on a limb a little bit, but not really.
Well, like, because, he's a younger Hudson, and he actually looked better than Lane at the time because he's younger.
Yeah.
And he had a monster year in his D-1. He didn't really improve in his draft year, but, like, he was basically already at the top of the mountain, and he just stayed there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Cole Hudson, like, you should be looking at this guy too. And, like, I had, like, a lot of, scouts and stuff on Twitter that I interact with. They're like, no, he's not even close to Lane. And he's probably not close to Lane, but Lane is like a superstar talent. But like now you look at it 2 years later and he's already in the NHL.
In the NHL.
So much excitement about him. But like it was, that was, I mean, I probably could have had him up even higher, but it was one of those things where it's like nobody's talking about this guy, like even as like a first rounder. Like,
and I mean, those scouts that were saying he's not even close to Lane probably didn't have Lane in the first round either.
Yeah.
And I remember reading a prominent scout say, and I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to say, I remember somebody saying, there's nobody like Lane Hudson. You look around the NHL teams that make it to the Stanley Cup final and there's no Lane Hudsons there. And well, Canadians are in the Eastern Conference final right now. And Lane Hudson's been one of their best players
for one more game,
but still, I mean, 78 points, 15 points in 18 playoff games. I mean, Lane Hudson has arrived, and Cole Hudson is looking very much in that same vein. But you look here, and Perek obviously at 3. You've got a certain Henry Muse at 18 as well. I'm not sure if there's any other Flames in this top 32, but I know, is Andrew Basha in there? Where is he?
21.
21, right, there he is. And I know you had Matt Vigridden and Luke Misa as well, right? Sort of around, I think, in the late 30s, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
so
like I had him, I think, both as
honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a year, and I think all of those placements have aged well. Even the Basha one, which, I mean, tough year with the Wranglers, but who didn't have a tough year with these Wranglers, right? So, it looks like it's just, I think this is, I mean, just speaking personally, I think looking at this top 32 compared to the actual top 32 and then compared to how you might redraft it 2 years later, I think the redraft would look a lot closer to this one than the actual top 32, just personally. But that's my take. What do you think, Pike?
Just imagine if the Flames hadn't gotten gouged for Iginla, like when they were kicking tires on trading her for Tige. And in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I think they got the guy they needed. I think you look at the body work they did in 24 and go, they did a lot of good things. They got a goalie they like. They got a couple defensemen they like. They got some forwards they like. A couple guys were playing in the NHL and they're up in that draft. But yeah, just the one that got away might be Iginla, just in terms of Utah wanting an arm and a leg and
I don't know if it's got away. They just didn't want to give up the arm and the leg for it.
And I mean, hey, Tige almost
kept their body parts.
This is true. And there's always Joe.
It's an arms race.
Joe doesn't look anything like that.
Joe doesn't look any. Yeah, we should talk about Joe again.
I was really excited about Joe, but he did not.
He had a tough year,
really at all.
He had a tough year.
Does your model view Joe as a draft pick?
Third rounder.
Yeah, third rounder. It's higher than I thought.
Like he's. I mean, they're both born in August.
Yeah,
Jerome was
planned that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's appealing, but like he really didn't develop like I was expecting him to. So I maybe back into the second, but
I'll be honest with you, I'm not expecting Joe to go before the fifth.
Joe is ranked 200th by Central Scouting amongst North American scouts.
I don't think he'll go. I think I could see
the name.
He's got the name, so I could see the Flames using like a 6th on him.
Yeah.
If he gets there.
The Marty Brodeur type thing.
Yeah.
No, but then they're not going to get their obscure Russian goalie then. He feels to
me
don't
need another goalie.
He feels to me like someone who maybe doesn't get picked this time.
Yeah.
Because like he's an August birthday like Tige was, and August birthdays are either, you're either kind of behind physically in your development,
Yeah.
or you're not. I don't think there's really much of a middle ground.
Yeah.
And for him, he feels like a guy that will maybe not get picked, have a really good season of or summer of training, maybe go to a development camp, see sort of the gap between him and the guys who did get picked, or even the guys who got picked high, and then he'll be a maniac next season and maybe get picked as a re-entry.
Maybe.
Because like he seems like someone that is primed for an explosion. I think that's why so many people were enthusiastic about him. They're like, between the bloodlines and how his first couple seasons looked, and sort of, I think people sort of saw how Tija's first couple seasons went, and then his trajectory, and went, okay, I can see
and
the parallel.
He hit the Oil Kings, and it was like, he's already on the Oil Kings. Like, this is great. And then it was like,
then it just didn't work out.
And then that was it.
So,
so
if he feels like,
I feel like he'll get drafted. There's no way they're leaving Iginla on the table.
this is true.
I agree. I don't think it'll be above round,
it'll
round
be
5.
late.
I think it'll be quite late.
And
but,
he's pretty small right now.
Yeah, he's
like,
5'10".
I think he still has a growth spurt in him. Like, because there's
Maybe.
no way he's going to end up at 5'10", and Tej is 6'1", and Jerome is 6'2". Like,
At this point, like how
his,
tall is Jade?
His mom's not very tall though.
that's true.
Like that's the thing. I think I think Jade is maybe 5'9".
That's tall for a girl.
It's tall
Yeah.
for sure. Let's see.
She is listed as 5'8".
Hockey DB has her at 5'7". But yeah,
Brown has 5'8".
yeah. I could see Joe top. If Joe doesn't get to 6 feet, that'll be interesting. But yeah, no, that's a name that lots of Flames fans will be looking for. And I'm with you. I think he'll get picked. It's just I'm not sure.
I was so excited for him. Like, I thought he was going to be like a top 5 pick when he was first.
Everybody was so mad about the Hitman passing on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Because
hasn't
then they
worked
got
out.
they
got a guy who didn't even play
They got
for
the
him.
guy who they ended up trading twice.
Yeah. So in any event, okay. The main event, 2026. What year is it? 2026. The NHL draft coming up. The Flames have 2 picks in the first round. They have picks number 6 and we hope 31. We hope it's 31 because Ottawa has 32. Remember? So we hope that they get the Vegas pick.
Oh, because
then they get the Rasmus Anderson 2028 first round pick, which I mean, I don't know how much stock you put into the idea of like weighting the value of draft picks and stuff. Like what is the difference in value, I guess, between as like getting a prospect at 31 versus 61?
I mean, once you get into the 20s, like 20 to 30 type range, or 32, I guess, like it's about 50% of them make it to 200 games. I mean, I think probably about 2% of them turn into stars. Once you get into the second round, it drops down to like 30%.
Right.
So I mean, it's a decent.
It's significant.
Jump. Like if it's like pick 32 versus like pick 35, like we're probably talking about a wash.
Probably getting
like
the same player.
If it's 30 versus 45 or 30 versus 60, like I think that's a decent jump that you probably want that. Like there's still those first rounders that are like Zarovsky and stuff from last year that like sneak past the first round and then they're right there, but they don't normally make
Chernyshov.
They don't normally do a Lane Hudson and make it all the way to the back end of the second.
I do enjoy that the crux of Mike's question is essentially first rounders overrated ?
Yeah.
No, you want more first rounders, Mike.
What's the difference in value between the first and the second round? Probably about 30 spots.
One round.
I mean, you say that. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think last year we were all sort of tracking the Florida Panthers into the playoffs because obviously the Flames had their first round pick. And I think ultimately, I forget who it was that sort of made the point that with Cullen Potter, they probably would have just taken him regardless, just with the way that they sort of liked him.
I think it was the Flames. The Flames said that.
Did they?
Yeah.
I forget. Yeah. I think he was their guy regardless. And I think for a lot of teams, their lists are different by that point anyway.
Every team is different. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
I think this year, this feels like, God, I remember talking to Craig Conroy about the 2012 draft at Winsport in advance of that draft. And I think the thought process was everyone had like Yakupov and Murray, like 1, 2 in some order, and then just 3 down was completely different.
Except the Leafs.
And this kind of feels like feels like a different draft, like that kind of a draft where it's like, like maybe there's a consensus on the top, like 1 or 2, and then 3 to 6 maybe, and then it's just sort of like
it's a yard sale.
Yeah,
even like 1, 2, like I really like both of those forwards at the top. Obviously, you'll see from the list, but like if the Leafs like go off the wall a little bit and then pick Stenberg, and then like all of a sudden
San Jose's not sure.
because they're like, oh, we're gonna pick up a D, and then all of a sudden McKenna's sitting there, and
it turns into Shane Wright 2.0.
or like draft day. Bo Callahan,
Bo Callahan,
and I want my third rounder
Yeah.
back just because.
Well, speaking of trades, I believe Prairie Toyota and all their dealers take vehicles on trade. Boy, that was really bad.
Do you have to include a pick as a sweetener, or are they just taken
Something like
as
that.
is?
I think you can throw in various different things. Those types
They'll
of
take your
stories.
vehicle in a conditional 7th.
That's right. But if you're looking to dominate off the ice as much as your team does on it, or perhaps at the NHL entry draft, you can check out the Toyota Tacoma with its standard I-Force engine. It boasts, Byron, an impressive towing capacity of up to 6,400 pounds, which I believe is the equivalent, using your model, of about 32 draft picks worth of power.
wow.
That's pretty crazy.
That.
I should look at that. So whether you're hauling gear to the rink or heading to an away game, the Toyota Tacoma can handle it with ease. Experience, power, capability, and everything else, convenience with Toyota Tacoma. And you can head to your Prairie Toyota dealers until the end of Red Tag Days, which is on until the end of May, as far as I'm led to believe. So there you go.
I have an interesting tidbit for you, gentlemen.
Let's hear it.
So this year's draft, the 2026 draft, will be solo or in part the 21st for Todd Button at the helm of Flames Amateur Scouting.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. I mean, and a chameleon kind of, as far as talk about a guy whose drafting philosophy seems to just match the GM at any given time.
Hey, look at that.
He's
knows how to keep his job.
Yeah. I interviewed him for my book, and I asked him, I don't even think I was polite about it. I'm like, how are you still here, Todd?
How do you still have a job?
Like it feels, because you feel like every time they change over hockey ups, I know like Vancouver now, like when they're changing over their regime, there's chatter, they'll probably switch things over. When Edmonton's new regime came in, they changed who's in charge of their amateur scouting. I believe it's Rick Pracey this year, the 3rd year. So he hasn't been in very long. If you look at the Canadian teams, if you combine the tenures of every single head of amateur scouting, I believe Todd's been there almost twice as long.
What do you think? Would Todd at post draft, would he be a bookable guest?
I don't
know.
Maybe we usually get it. We usually get him on in the media lounge after day 2. And
maybe like
go, Todd, here's a list of names. Can you tell us who
about
these
each
people
one?
are?
Yeah. But maybe with a week to decompress. That would be kind of interesting. Let's make some calls. Jack, get on it. Jack's not even here. Yasmin, tell Jack to get on it. Yes, Yasmin, you can get on it too. We'll figure it out. Let's put up the 2026 top 32 from hockeyprospecting.com. And I know, Byron, I think you got a bit of a heart out today, right? Something like
we got some
another
30 years.
We got another. Okay, we'll make it work. We might not even keep you.
We got another 3 hours.
Yeah.
Let's go through the list.
I got my kids' baseball. I can't miss that.
You can't miss that. So here we are. The top 32 from Hockey Prospecting, and it is Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg at 1 and 2 respectively. And from there, it diverges a little bit from the consensus, but not really. And there isn't really a consensus. Everybody has a different view of it, and this is honestly not that far off from a lot that I've seen.
Carl's at 3. Some people have him as low as 5. You're outrageous.
I mean, I would say here, just looking at this top 10, a lot of guys here who are in virtually every other top 10. The one that maybe sticks out to me is, again, Tynan Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, so he is really interesting in kind of a not great way in the model, but like a lot of good things. So like really young, he's born on my son's birthday, so I'll always remember that, August 3rd. He had the great year in the USHL last year on a good sample, and then he becomes the captain and stays at the USHL this year. And he plays 14 games, and then he's like, I'm just going to go to college. And then he goes to college halfway through. So he plays about 30 games total on the whole year, but he basically splits it I think 13, and then he played, 17 or something in college. So then he did really well in the USHL in his draft year and has this really elite statistical profile to go along with the young age. And I always take, if they play in multiple leagues, which normally only happens in European leagues, doesn't normally happen in North American leagues, I always take where they showed best. So, I'm using the USHL data in my model. And then he goes to college as the youngest player in college because he's born in August in his grade 12 year.
On a bad BU team.
Yeah.
A really bad BU team.
And he doesn't do much, especially at the start, and he starts to get cooking kind of at the end. but he doesn't look great. But it's okay. That's fair. Like, he's so young. What are you going to do with that? So he looks really good. But the only thing I really don't like is that small sample that you're dealing with. But even when he was at the USHL, like I mentioned, he was the captain. He was kind of like getting better as he was going at the USHL, and then he just like stopped and then switched. So where would he have ended up if he played a whole year there? Like, he might have even gone up a whole nother level in the model.
Because he played a few weeks, got hurt for a month, played a couple more weeks, then said, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a normal trajectory for a hockey player their draft year.
Yeah, like a very odd. So it's maybe a bit spicy to have him up that high, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of centers in this draft, natural centers. And I mean, he's one of them. You have Malhotra, who's right behind him, who didn't have as good of a D-1 year. And then you have Lawrence, who's normally kind of ranked, I'd say, more that like 7 to 10 hole. Yeah. So I have him a little bit higher, but I mean, in terms of what's available for true centers, like, he's not going to be here right away. It's not like he's going to be Patrice Bergeron and be here like next year, or at least I don't think he will be. But like, you give this guy 1 or 2 more years in the NCAA, then it might be like, okay, we might be sitting on like one of the best prospects in the NHL that hasn't played a game yet by, the 2027-28 season.
On the center thing, is that sort of why? Because I think you're a little bit higher on your model on Thomas Chirenko.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I got the name right.
I think so.
If it is that sort of one of the logics too, like he's had really good numbers in the extra league in Slovakia.
Yeah.
And he played well in international tournaments. Like, he seems like a guy that, if you're going to quibble about the level of competition, okay, sure. But relative to who he's playing against, he's performing really well for his age.
Playing against men. Like, the Slovakia league is not one that a lot of players come from, but the sample size of it's very small, but the players that have come from there, especially really young like this in their draft year, like, it's a decent league. Like, it's kind of sandwiched in between the Czech league and Liga, I would say. So he's really underrated. Like, yeah, he probably gets boosted up a couple more steps because he's a natural center as well. But like, I would certainly, like, even if he was a winger, I would certainly probably have him in the top 15, top 16. I think he's really underrated. I think he's gonna, like, in a couple years, like, he's kind of like, I compared him in my write up to Roman Kantsarov. Like, he looks very similar, and Kantsarov wasn't in the KHL in his draft year, really. He went there in his D+1, and it took him a bit to get going, and then he started putting up record-breaking numbers. And now, like, that guy was taken in, I think, the early second rounder. Like, that guy's probably in a redraft already before even playing a game. Like, he's probably at least a late first rounder, maybe even in the teens. So I think that's what you're kind of looking at with Chirenko as well.
And at 18, you basically just made a player up, right? Like, I saw this guy's name. Like,
oh yes,
I'm a giant nerd. I had never heard of this guy.
Shaisalamamov. Yeah,
I had never heard of this. His numbers are good, but who the hell is this guy?
Alan Shekhlishlamov.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not.
Shekhlishlamov.
From the coal mines of Chelyabinsk,
Yeah.
right to the Bader's list in 18.
Yeah, Alan from Russia.
Alan from Russia.
So he, like, I haven't heard a word about this guy. I saw him on the Elite Prospects ranking. I think he was like number 62 or something. So I was like, okay, I can work with that. But he's coming from this wonky MHL league, which is sort of hit and miss. And
the M stands for junior. It's true.
Right.
It's
exactly.
True. It's MHL, the junior hockey league.
Yeah. I mean, that's just as you do assume anyways.
Yeah.
So this is like a really underscouted league, and, Russians right now, with all the conflicts worldwide and stuff, they tend to drop in the drafts. But like, this guy profile is very similar to Lawrence, and he's even younger. Like, he's 10 days away basically from being in next year's draft. And he has really good numbers, and he's versatile. He plays right wing and left wing. Apparently he's good size. It's not like he's like 5'9" or something. Those guys, like, they're not getting taken in the first 4 rounds if he's Russian like that, but he's 6'1", almost 200 pounds. So yeah, like, he's one of those ones where you look at anybody close who's profiled anything like him, and Kucherov, who profiled much better, but he's like the only thing that's close with that young birthday and had the great D-1 and then the draft year in the MHL. And it's like, if it's a chance that this guy can be something like that, I'm going to put him up there.
Already got a KHL game this year, and Stephen Ellis, our friend over at DFO, has him at 88. So you know, not certainly in a certain sphere.
And in a couple years in UFA, like I mean, you know, when you're playing in the Salavat Yuleev system, I mean, it's a good system. They sent guys to high level pro, and it's the hometown of the UFA Wizard, the junior hockey legend. So I mean, it's one of those towns where like there's
UFA
some areas.
Wizard.
There's
UFA Wizard.
I'll send you a link. It's like the most obscure scouting.
I would love that.
But yeah, just the idea like there's some towns just like London, Ann Arbor, Michigan, for some reason, kids who grow up in that area always sort of become something.
Yeah.
And like a couple of areas in Russia are just pockets of really good hockey talent, and UFA seems to be one of them.
Okay. It's time to talk about Viggo Bjork, because a lot of folks want us to talk about Viggo Bjork. A lot of folks are excited about Viggo Bjork. And you talked about Tynan Lawrence and how, you know, guys in North America don't usually switch leagues.
Yep.
And Viggo Bjork played in 2 leagues this year. He played in the Swedish league and in the U20 league over in Sweden. And
not only in the playoffs, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he went back late, and he had and he had a great
4 games.
Yeah, but then like 10 playoff games, and he had 20 points.
Yeah,
so a crazy playoff for Viggo Bjork in the playoffs. Had sort of a modest year, I would say, in the Swedish league, playing reasonable minutes, not on a great team, and also in his case, he's also done a ton of international play this year, World Juniors, World Championships. I mean,
there's that great clip of him just knocking
Adam Klapka's
ass to steal a puck from him, which
yeah,
good for Bjork and not as good for Klapka.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, he's a short center. He's a 5'10" center.
Oh, he's 5'10". He's not a center then.
Well,
he's too small.
You know who else is a 5'10" center? Our friend Cole Reschny. He's a 5'10" center.
Could you have 2 of those on the same team?
You know what?
One of them is right-handed though.
I dare say you could. And you know what?
I don't know if you can.
I am looking at these Montreal Canadiens, and I am saying, I get it. You're going to lose to the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that also has some short centers. And I'm saying, I'm here for it. The Hurricanes, they have Sebastian Aho and Logan Stankoven. And
Stankoven's a center?
He's playing number 2 center.
Okay.
He is.
Hey, Nick Suzuki is barely 5'11". If we're gonna be playing the measuring stick game.
And who's Montreal's 2C?
Well,
is that Deneau?
Deneau, he's not the biggest guy. But
are you telling me that is not a they don't measure goals and assists based on
your size
and your height? They don't weigh you and say here's how many goals you got.
Though.
That's the thing. Montreal, their centers, that's sort of their big issue right now, is they don't really have a quote unquote 2C because they've got Jake Evans there, and he's a sort of a bigger guy. But they got Deneau. They were like the only team that wanted Deneau because he had 0 goals with the Kings, but they knew that he could do stuff for them.
Yeah.
But
down roll.
Exactly. So, but that's the thing, right? Like, we are seeing a bit of a reckoning in the NHL this year of teams where the centers that are winning games in the playoffs this year are skilled centers first and foremost, who aren't necessarily big, powerful Ryan Getzlaf types who are effective in their own way, but who just take over games. And I mean, I look at the centers on the team that has already punched its ticket to the Stanley Cup final, and Jack Eichel is an all finesse guy, and William Karlsson is an all finesse guy, and Tomas Hertl is an all finesse guy. And I am looking at the idea of the Flames adding a guy like Viggo Bjork to their contingent and sort of saying here, would it be I mean, you have Malhotra ranked ahead, but how do these two guys profile differently against each other?
So, yeah, model wise, they're quite different because Bjork is a little bit older. He's not old, but I think he's born March 30th.
Whereas Malhotra's quite young.
Yeah, he's like, I think late June. So that, like, I always like those spring, summer guys, especially the summer guys a lot more. Just historically, if apples to apples, they have the same numbers, those guys tend to be something more in the NHL, I guess. But you have Malhotra coming from, obviously, junior league in the OHL, dominating, doing some big things in the playoffs. And he's kind of like progressively, like he starts off in the BCHL last year. Yeah. And he's low producer in the BCHL, which is, obviously
not a great sign.
Second tier junior league. But then he makes a big jump and he's kind of getting better as the season's going. Like his equivalency is growing throughout the year. And then as he gets in the playoffs, I think he has an equivalency in the 40s. Last I checked,
26 points in 15 games. Yeah. That's the thing. Both these guys are coming off crazy playoffs.
Which I mean, always like that. Always goes into people's drafting lists and the recency effect and stuff. So I like that. Like he's kind of progressively getting better and better. And then Bjork is a bit of a different scenario because he's a little bit older and he had a really high equivalency playing in the J20 last year. He had something in the early 30s, I think, which is amazing for a D1, especially like a Marchborn guy. Like now I want to see him follow that up with like something in like the 40s or the 50s. Then I'd be ecstatic about this guy. But he goes to the SHL, which is essentially the second or third hardest league in the world. And his equivalency drops down. And I never like to see that where they drop from, especially like something from the 30 into the 20s. But there's a caveat where if they're playing in like the same league, like if they're playing in the OHL and they drop from a 30 to a 20s, it's like catastrophic. Like there's a guy in the draft who did that.
Rubrick, I think, right? Or was it was it Belchitz?
No,
or?
Rubrick, yeah.
Was it Rubrick? Yeah, it was Rubrick.
Yeah. But if you're going to like the jump up from going from the J20 to the Swedish league, like it's probably 3 times harder. So I'm taking that into account. So I like the way he plays, like just watching like the highlights and watching like, you know, his
sturdy
plays in the world. Like he's sturdy and he's hard on the puck. He's going to be like a possession monster, but I always liken it back. Like he's going to be in the NHL. He's going to play 200 games in the NHL, but what are you getting? Are you getting like Hoglander or are you getting like Brad Marchand?
Right.
Like a guy that is an absolute dog on the puck and kind of a pain in the ass, but he's also going to get like 80, 90 points a year. Great. Sign me up. But if he's like a dog on the puck, great possession player, but he's kind of, you know, like you're kind of getting like Michael Backlund where you're getting 30 to 50 points in a good year, then it's like, I think you might be walking away from a really good, potentially star option above him, the players that I have ranked above him, and just getting a really good possession player. Like I want the star at 6 overall. Like this is a relatively deep draft. You know, this is not 2012. You have some good potential. So that's my only reservation, I guess, with Bjork is like, are you getting the monster point producer? Or are you getting just kind of okay?
How does your model, I guess, I don't know how to ask this. Okay. The worlds are weird, man. And so like, I don't know, like if I were in your shoes and I was building a model, like the world is such a weird conglomeration of whoever's healthy, interested, and available. Yeah. And meanwhile, OHL playoffs are here's the best of the best. The survive, you know, they've gone through the survival of the fittest. So like you had Malhotra playing against some really good battle-tested teams, and you have Bjork being a little bit more showy and getting arguably, I'd say, really prominent role because it's Swedish national team going, screw it. It's the world's we don't have like with this club team. They're, you know, they have the thing in Sweden, I'm sure you're aware of, where young guys tend not to play a lot because you need to earn your spot.
Yep.
And so he probably played lower in the rotation than he would have in other situations. Whereas in the Worlds, it's not a club team. They don't care. They're just giving him prominent minutes because they're trying to win a short-term tournament. How do you weigh a tournament like the Worlds in your model or do it all?
It is not at all in there. Because it's always like the World Juniors, the Worlds, the Olympics, like none of that stuff is in the model. It's all kind of like league based and it's all regular season because some teams get a nice long playoff run. Some teams get nothing, but like
you're not going to punish guys for being on bad teams kind of thing.
Yeah, but they always, well, unless they get injured, they always play the same amount of regular season games by each league. So yeah, playoffs aren't taken into consideration and stuff like the Worlds and World Juniors aren't in the model as well. It's just sort of like a nice anecdotal thing. Like, oh, look how he's doing out there.
I just want to cap off this Viggo Bjork discussion with just a remember some names category of our show, because I'm looking here at Djurgården. Djurgården, not an overly successful team this year.
Is this who I think it's going to be?
There's a few. Not an overly successful team this year, but a bit of an older team. That's the thing. So they like kind of like the 23 Flames, a veteran team that's not very good. Where
stuff of legends,
it's the stuff of legends, you know, where a younger player can maybe play it. In Bjork's case, the youngest player on the team.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the only other 17-year-old was Marcus Nordmark, who only played 8 games and had 1 assist. So the fact that Viggo Bjork played virtually every game is impressive in and of itself. But here we go. Starting from the very top, here are some of Viggo Bjork's teammates with Djurgården this year. Joey LaLeggia,
Oh, I remember him.
Joe Snively, Charles Houdon.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
draft pick.
Charles Houdon. A couple 25 first-round picks in Anton Frendel and Victor Eklund. Okay. And then Colby Sissons, Colton's brother. Colby Sissons. Matthias Emilio Pedersen. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Hello, Emilio.
Flames legend.
This guy, a very highly touted player at one point, Jacob Josephson. New Jersey Devils first round pick. Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
Another fairly highly touted player at one point who won a couple Stanley Cups, Marcus Kruger.
Right.
And then Gustav Lindstrom, Philip Holm, Oliver Shillington.
Ooh.
Yeah, so a lot of guys who are very established pros on this team, very established pros. Even guys like Anton Frendel. I mean, when he was 18, when he was 17, he was an established pro. He was viewed as a top 3 pick, right?
One of my favorites.
Number 1 overall prospect for 2025. And I mean, yeah. So some very tough competition, albeit not on a very good team.
Yeah.
Which for a guy like Viggo Bjork is maybe the most difficult possible scenario, where the team itself isn't so good that it can boost your production, but also it's so deep in its own way. It's kind of like the current Flames. They got all depth, no stars.
So you can't
break through as much. Yeah.
Significant role on the team.
Well,
and that's always the thing is it's like, oh, if he would have gone back to the J20, he would have killed it. He would have looked great in your model. Probably. I agree. You look at what he did in the playoffs. He had 20 points in 9 games. You translate that, if that, if that's a good, decent sample of games and he did that in the regular season, in the J20, he would go from something in the 30s to something in the 40s and it'd be like, yeah, looks great.
He's the guy.
But he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And he goes to the SHL. So it's always this tricky thing. It's like, wow, he would have done that if he was in the junior league, but he didn't. So then
we don't know.
This is what he did in this year. And it's the SHL, I will say, is the biggest league, I'd say, where they don't have these great productive years, but then they move over to the NHL early on, and then they just start exploding, like Lucas Raymond.
Lucas Raymond was the first one I thought of.
And Kopitar's another one where it's I don't know what we got here. And then he comes over here, and then his production is
instant.
3 times what it was there. So I like him a lot. I'm just a little hesitant. Are you getting a game breaker? That's my big thing.
And Djurgården especially, they weren't great this year, and bless his heart. This is a pro Theos Doxilius program. We will not say a bad word about that young man. Stonks are high, but he played so many SHL games because Djurgårdens ran out of forwards. When he came back from that skate cut, he played 2 or 3 games in junior, and then the club team's like, we're out of bodies, guys. Can you give us your couple of guys who can hack it for a little bit? And then he played the remainder of the season because he was fine, but they didn't have many other options. And so it was one of those things where the team was no great shakes, and they're basically going with, here are the 18 skaters we have who are healthy this week. We're going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And, I think it's probably kind of tough to judge statistical profiles when guys are sort of forced into those kind of situations, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think we'll round it off with the 26 draft. We're not going to talk too much about McKenna and Stenberg just because there's not really any reason to.
They look great.
They look good. They're probably not going to be around when Calgary picks. Not really.
Could you imagine if they were?
That would be crazy. But we'll see. I do want to just sort of cap things off, though, because this is a very defense-heavy draft, and at the top of the draft, and it's been perceived that way for a while. And there are players who I don't even see on this top 32 who I have heard a lot about as big time. I'm thinking Malte Gustafsson in my head right now is a guy who's been talked about as being even maybe a possible top 10 pick, with just the number of different defensemen who are out there. But the 5 who are in your top 10. With Karls, Reed, Verhoff, Rudolph, and Lynn. In all likelihood, one of those guys will be a Calgary Flame. I mean, they could get a center, but it looks like Caleb Malhotra is going to be gone. Tynan Lawrence is a guy who is high in your model and has a lot of appealing attributes, and mid-season was viewed as being maybe a top 3 pick. And I don't know if he'll actually go that high, but we'll see. And Viggo Bjork is sort of the wild card. We don't know. But the 5D all seem to have pretty safe projections. I mean, I think it would be kind of silly of me to ask, how do you rank them? Because you already have. But as far as what the Flames need for their specific case, what do you see being maybe the differentiator between these 5 guys?
I mean, I think you probably have to look at Carson Carroll's first.
Yeah.
Because he's the left side. Like if you can get him and Parekh playing together, then
You really like it.
I mean, that's going to be amazing. But like Chase Reed is basically the same player as Parekh, to say, and he shoots the same way. So then that one's tricky. Verhoff plays a bit different. Obviously, he's got the size. You know, maybe he can kind of be that Chris Pronger type thing, which would be gigantic. Pun intended. But he's also a right shot, I believe. So
all of them are right shots except for Carson Carls.
And maybe Smith.
I think
Smith
that's the
is a
deciding factor for sure. Like, I think I would go Carls and then Verhoff and then Reed and the other 2.
Albert Smits is not ranked here. He is not in your 32 as far, or is he?
He's 22.
I can't read. He's at 22, almost an identical spot to where Anton Saleyev was in 2024.
He looks very similar too.
Does he?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
In good ways and bad.
Not great ways. So I mean, yeah, he's big, he's mobile, like he's probably going to be like a shutdown presence, like Saleyev is projected to be, but like he profiles the same way, where there's just not enough production, and he's a bit older prospect that I'm not taking that guy in the top 10 when there's these offensive juggernaut defensemen that are available, like more so than most any other year except for 2018, basically. So that's, you know, I'm not going to pass on one of these guys for a guy that probably, yeah, maybe he can be like a defensive wizard or a shutdown, one of the, you know, like a really good top 4 shutdown D-man. But if he's only producing, you know, 15, 20 points to go along with that, it's tough for me to walk away from what is available, because there's some really good stuff in the top 10. Yeah.
Like Yan Kuznetsov will probably outscore that next year, and they get Yan Kuznetsov significantly later in a weaker draft.
Like 50. Yeah. That's a time where you can maybe afford to take a player like that. I don't know. I'm with you. I think it's a gamble. I mean, I think there's a lot of connotations around certain players being safe picks, but I get the sense that with your model, those are the opposite of safe picks.
Yeah. Like safe is like when you say, oh, it's a safe pick, it's like those are the ones that like you think they're projectable, but then they take years to develop, and then you shove them into the lineup, and then like, you know, it's like, oh, this isn't really working out how we had hoped, and this took much longer. Whereas like the non-safe pick or the risky bet is that little tiny guy that profiles like a late first rounder that you end up getting in the 4th round. Like that's the safe pick. If, you know, those make the NHL and do a lot more, especially based on the draft position, compared to a overhyped big D-man like that is going to take years.
Okay. We'll put you on the spot here. So as of right now, let me just pull up my big fancy list, because I wrote this down. The Flames have 11 picks in this year's draft. As of this recording, they are slated to draft 6th, 30th/31st, 35th, 36th, 51st, 55th, 65th, 68th, 100th, 132nd, and 164th. So they have nine picks in the top 100 of this year's draft.
Yeah.
If it's up to you, based on where the Flames are in their developmental cycle and what they have and don't have in their system, should they make 9 picks? Or if it was up to you, would you package and try to move up and take bigger swings?
With that many picks, especially like all those second rounders, I think I would try and package them up. And like, if you get to the back end of the first and Liam Ruck hasn't been taken, and then you can possibly get both of them together, I mean, obviously I'm all in on that.
They already have their center. They
have Basha.
Andrew Basha learned to play center this year because he was that excited about playing those guys.
Yeah. So then like one of those guys like Trenko or Hurlburt, like if they're kind of sitting there and you just made your pick, and then you're like, oh, we really like this guy, like let's trade 2 of our seconds and hop up and then get like another one of these guys. I really like that idea for this year, because I mean, that's a lot of picks. You don't need to make 11 picks.
And they made like 10 picks last year.
Yeah.
The year before,
they already have like a really stock system. Like they have a lot of those like guys that could be an NHLer. Now it's like, let's add some possible blue chippers. And if we can get 2-3 more of those, ready to rock. Like, let's start getting better and
sign Cale Makar.
Getting ready for that new building, right? So,
well, I'm curious for this because I know I'm all for trading up as well. My position on trading up is I would rather, all sorts of people are talking about trading up from 6, and I don't really see that as a huge priority for the Calgary Flames. I think there's a huge sort of a huge ledge of players they can pick at 6 and come away happy, as happy as they might be if they'd pick that player at 4 or pick that player at 3, right? Like they might get the same guy. I think it is of the utmost importance for the Flames to try and get a 3rd first-round pick in this year's draft. Or move up from pick number 31 or pick number 30. That to me feels like it should be more of a priority. And what you said about the Rucks is interesting. Yasmin, I think we got the top. Let's put the top 20 or top 32 for the 26 draft back up, because I couldn't help but notice that you've highlighted the 2 Rucks in blue. That's sort of an interesting little aesthetic choice.
Yeah. Well, because I basically, I mean, we've all seen the highlights and we've seen how they play in that telekinetic Twins thing that they have about them. So I think these are like, I treat them as like one giant prospect. Like, they're stronger together than they are either one of them separated from each other. Like I mentioned in the write-up, this is so rare that you have 2 twins that play hockey, 2 twins that are that good that they're going to get drafted in the NHL, and 2 twins that are high enough producers that they could be something really special. It's only happened
once,
3 times,
well,
really. Well,
I guess
it's happened 3 times. It only worked out once. You have
Who are the other?
You have the Sedins. You have the Peter and Chris Ferrero.
Yeah,
They didn't work out. And then you had the
Sutters.
The Sutters.
Yeah.
John and Rich. Yeah.
So, I mean, the Sedins, even, like, it took a few years for it to work out. Like, they went back to Sweden and then they were thrown in the NHL, and then it was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And it took, like, I'd say like 5 years before it was like, oh. And then once they figured it out, it was like, oh God, like the Sedins are on the ice together. Like, that's a goal. Like, there's something happening there. So I think you have to try and get them together and take the risk. That's why I highlight them there. Like, as their own entities, like, I would probably move them back a little bit and maybe move up some of these guys. But if you can get them together, I kind of have them right in the middle of the top 32. So we'll see if a team can actually pull it off. Like, the Flames obviously have the best setup to try and do that.
Peter and Chris Ferraro is an incredible pull. That is wild.
I remember that draft year, and everyone's like,
You remember
one of them
that
might
draft
be
year? It was-
okay.
what was it? 1992.
92.
Remember 1992.
I've talked to people about the 1992 draft. I believe that was the Corey Stillman draft.
So
Could've been.
here's the thing, is that they both played in the USHL in their draft. And this is funny. This is very Liam and Marcus Ruck-ish,
Yes.
where Marcus is viewed as being by certain, like, there are certain analysts that have him as a 3rd rounder and Liam as a 1st rounder,
Which is insane.
which is kind of crazy. Peter was a 1st rounder.
Yep.
24 overall.
Yeah.
And Chris was a 4th rounder.
Yeah.
85th
And
overall.
they had like nearly identical production.
Yeah, and they both go to Maine the next year.
Yeah.
And Peter scores 50 points and Chris scores 51.
Yeah.
And they were both Rangers picks. And the Rangers got they picked the first one and then they waited a while to get the second, which is actually kind of how I think it's going to work this time too. I think a team is going to take Liam, and then other teams will say, well, we don't want Marcus if we're not going to get Liam too.
That's true.
I do.
Well, the way if I was a team, and then like
You take Marcus first.
Well, no, let's say Liam is taken, and then it's like, okay, I know these guys aren't up for another 15 picks,
Mhm.
and you have like a 2nd rounder, and you're like, I'm just going to take Marcus. And then it's like, why would you take Marcus? You know, you want them together. And then I would just basically go to the team that got Liam and say,
like, what do you want?
Give me a late 1st for next year, and I'll give you this guy back.
Well, the nice thing with the Flames is they do actually have the rare luxury of having back-to-back picks at the start of the 2nd
36.
round. That was that. Yeah. So that was,
Liam's not going to go that far.
he might.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I think he might. I don't know. He's a winger.
Because again, if teams are like, oh, we have these like 5 players and Liam is in there, but they're like, we want Marcus too. Well, we don't have the picks to get Marcus. So then it's like, let's pick one of the other 5.
Yeah.
That we have at this ledge.
I think the Flames are uniquely positioned to make it work. The Canucks are maybe also unique. Well, not quite uniquely, I guess then, but they are specially positioned to make it
I think
work.
St. Louis has a bunch of early
Yeah.
picks too. There's like 3 or 4 teams that could do it.
Yeah.
But maybe we're biased here. It feels like it'll probably be Calgary or Vancouver.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
Have you talked to Conroy about it? Is he going to do it?
Get him on.
I haven't
Sidetrack
talked to him on the
Pike?
record. No.
Conroy's probably a more bookable guest than Todd Button is.
Just because I'm proud that I remember this, and remember I wrote a book about the draft history, so
You did?
that's how I
Yeah,
remember
I
these
thought
things.
Yeah.
Here's the Flames. Here's the guys who played NHL games for the Flames from the '92 draft: Corey Stillman, Chris O'Sullivan, Matthias Johansson, Robert Svela,
Wow.
Sammy Hellenius, Joel Bouchard, and Ryan Mulhern and Jonas Hoagland.
Solid draft.
Robert Svela never played for the Flames, though. I think
No.
he maybe re-entered the draft.
Yeah.
He was,
No, I think they
player, though.
traded him for
He played for a while.
someone.
Played for a while.
Yeah, 1,000 games for Corey Stillman, traded him for Conroy
They
and
probably-
a pick they turned into Dave Moss. Svelas, almost 650
I
games.
think they probably traded him to Toronto. I think because he started there. Or no. He
Yeah.
started in Florida. He started
Yeah.
in Florida. That's right.
Hoagland, Bouchard, like Joel Bouchard was a damn good hockey player. He played very well for the Flames.
He's a
Sort of
coach
fell off
now.
the cliff. Yeah, he's in Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke's still in the league.
They
Somewhere
traded Robert Svela with Magnus Svensson, who also played in the NHL, for a conditional draft pick, round unspecified. That's great. And a
boy.
3rd round pick in the 1996 draft, which I don't think
I did not know that
And hey,
Hockey DB had trades.
They do.
associated. That's
Yeah, it's
And-
fantastic.
let's not forget the greatest pick in
Hilarious.
Flames history, Void.
Yes, they picked somebody who they weren't supposed to, right?
In 1990, they picked a guy who was already picked the year before,
Duh.
actually 2 years before. And they thought his rights had lapsed, but he hadn't.
fair.
That might actually happen with. Did you see the news today? Jack Pridham, Brandon Pridham's kid. Yeah, he's one of the best players in the Memorial Cup right now with Kitchener. Just I think led the OHL in goals, and he might actually go back into the draft. I think we might have even asked you last year about your opinion on re-entries, but I'm always curious about the top re-entries. Like, is it a better bet at a certain point in the draft to go with a guy who has already had the draft +1, draft +2 season that you might hope from a player, as opposed to picking
I mean,
guys
yeah,
that's
I love overagers that profile like that
Yeah.
make that jump, like Mangiapane, like
Yeah.
like he made that massive jump and then they draft him in his D+1. Like if you drafted a player in the 6th round and then he almost put up an equivalency of 40 in
Yeah.
his D+1, you'd be like, yes,
Yeah,
like Wyttenbach, right?
exactly.
Like I don't like the overagers when it's like
Hunter
know,
Smith.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like or like
Trevor
even
Hoskin.
older than that when it's like this guy hasn't progressed at all and it's like let's take a shot at this guy when he's 22. I think this is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then it's like that guy has like a 1% chance of making it based on all the examples that have come before him.
Yeah.
But I love the ones that pop early that make
You-
those big jumps.
Since we have you, we'll put you on the spot. How do you feel like the Flames are doing sort of with their late rounders? I know like they seem to be a fairly
Yeah, like
I would say I would call them efficient early because if you look at their like the first 3-4 rounds, last 3 drafts, you go, okay, those are more or less the guys that most people would pick. And then you go to the later rounds, it's like Trevor Hoskin in 24 was in his 3rd year, the
Didn't
3rd or
like
4th
that
year
one.
in the OJHL, but he really popped. He had a good
Yeah.
year, and he's 20, but he performed really well. 4th round kind of felt like the time to gamble on a player like that. Then you have, this
Misa.
last year, Wyttenbach, they had, Misa.
Yeah.
It's like your mixture of overagers with
Lane.
interesting profiles, guys who are, like Aiden Lane's a good example where, I don't know how to weigh performance in prep school hockey because there's just not a big sample of guys who've made it. But in a small sample, he was good in the O.
Yeah.
So that feels like a good
like
place
they've
to roll the
made like
dice.
decent bets. Like a lot of them are like, these guys that make the NHL maybe 30-35% of the time, but like they might work out. Like you have Wyttenbach as a 5th rounder, whereas like when you're taking those like super low bets that like they never ever work out, especially when they're late draft picks, like those are the ones that stay away from always. But they've done a really good job of like, I kind of group them by like group A and group B, like definitely take this one, definitely don't take these types of ones. And those make up 70% of all drafted players. And they've done a good job of just dipping into that A group.
Well, and
Whatever's available, just,
they've gotten that second type of player. They've found that guy for free They've sort of been able to get that guy in as far as signings and
Klatka, like
well, exactly, Tyson Gross and the B pieces that they've gotten these trades, just basically as throw-ins.
Well, and that's, you wait to see like, oh, is this guy actually evolving and going to turn?
Yeah, you get those guys at age 23.
Now let's get him.
Yeah, get him when he's 23 instead of getting him when he's 18. Yeah.
Well, we were bugging you before we went on. I think you mentioned, I guess Tri-City Americans / Edmonton Oil Kings standout Max Curran was I want to say a throw-in because he's a well-regarded prospect, but for the Flames, let's be they don't have it seems like the plan for a post-Backlund world is still a work in progress, and they drafted 4 centers last year. Matt Veko being the 4th. Then they go out and they got Jonathan Castagna in a trade. They get Max Curran in a trade. Like, what do you make of Curran? Curran?
Yeah, like he looks pretty decent. Like, he's really young. He's in his draft year, I think he had an equivalency in the low 20s or something for such a young player, which is great. And then he hasn't really evolved too much off of that, but that's okay. Like he's one of those bets that like he could be maybe a middle 6 center, or maybe even like a good versatile 4th line center. You need those.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think he's a great toss in.
Go to college
trade, like sneak those guys away from teams, like especially like now the talk is maybe Coleman back to Tampa. Like they have a couple prospects that it's like, okay, if you can like sneak those guys out of the system and then add it to your pool.
It feels like they sort of have a way of doing their trades now where it's like, all right, first rounder or multiple seconds and a depth roster player who can fill a gap and buy your kid some time. And then like your 3rd most interesting prospect in your system, where it feels like the conversation go, I want your first rounder and your best prospect and your best player. And then they get talked down to, okay, somebody who's pretty good and someone who can fill a void and a bunch of
David Putney. Just back to the
exactly.
David Putney.
It's a great movie.
Putney.
Like it's just adding those like kind of like underrated guys that they're maybe teams aren't like, oh no, this is like our prized possession. We're not talking about this guy. And it's like, oh, what about this guy? And then it's like, yeah, okay, we'll toss him in there. Like, I don't know exactly what they have. I haven't talked to them for a while, but like it seems like I know they have new analytics people there, so it seems like they have something. They have some sort of model.
They're not new anymore. They've been there for a few years.
Yeah, but newer. But it seems like they're kind of working off of something in the realm of this, whether it is this or it's their own thing. But they're kind of landing on similar logic that I would follow for a lot of this stuff. So it's good.
My favorite part of that draft day movie, the trade that makes the entire narrative make sense. If it didn't happen, it would all fall apart. Is the way that Kevin Costner gets the pick ahead of Seattle's pick, which is by giving away 3 second rounders for it, for the number 6 overall pick.
It's like the Uyghur trade.
Oh yeah. For the number 6 overall pick. Yeah, we'll give you the second rounders. This, and then he closes the deal by saying, "This is a good trade for both of us."
And then that young buck is just like, okay, sure.
He's like freaking out.
Yeah.
And he's like,
because the poor kid is new in the GM chair and he doesn't want to seem like an idiot to the press.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all legit.
Just take my second round.
I got a bunch of stuff for a guy.
And if that's the trade that has to happen for the movie to make sense, because Cleveland doesn't have any other assets in that movie. All they got is their second round.
Hollywood is going to make that happen. So it makes sense.
Well, it's Kevin Costner. I mean, Jennifer Garner's is his AGM, and he's got Dennis Leary as his head coach. I mean, it's just that's too much to go against.
Could you imagine the movie just ends with him just taking Vontae Mack?
Yeah. The movie ends with Jacksonville being like, "No, we'll make the pick.
Yeah,
we'll make the pick.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sonny. Yeah, that's all. That's a good place to leave this. I think.
Yeah.
That's hey Byron, it's been great.
Yeah,
really great.
For having me.
We will continue to do this, I think.
Yeah, and
then this will be a standing arrangement.
And at some point, we'll bring you back to look at the 26 draft results, and you can take a victory lap.
That's right.
Talking about how you guard your model.
Well, in 5 years, we will bring you back and say, Byron, the Flames don't pick until the 3rd round. What does your model say about the guys ranked in the 90s?
That'll be a tough conversation.
Who do they like at 102? We need to know who the 102
What do you think about the new arena seats? Do you think the cup holders are nice? That'll be the conversation.
Oh, come on. They're not going
They
to let
better
him
be
in.
nice.
They're not letting
They
him
better be
in.
nice. They're not. Yeah,
They are non-existent and atrocious
They will have
at the Saddle Dome. So
That's true. That's true. I can't wait. It's gonna. I get to watch. It's out of my building for now. I get to see the whole thing going up, and they got all the green on it now. They got all the green siding, and not the siding's not green, but the weatherproofing.
Yeah, it's weatherproof.
very nice.
It's very
We're starting
nice.
to put the LED panel stuff on the outside.
Oh,
the
it's
steel
so
stuff.
exciting. It's so exciting. It's
gonna be
building,
awesome.
building in multiple different ways. So we appreciate it. That is Byron Bader from hockeyprospecting.com. Anything else you want to plug, Byron?
Nope. Well, the website is hockeyprospecting.com. I'm at Twitter at Byron M. Bader.
That's right.
I post stuff about the draft coming up, and of course I'll be there live tweeting during the draft as always. But,
Always exciting.
yeah.
Well, it's good that we were able to talk about so much. We want to do more about the WHL stuff, Pike, WHL prospects. We touched a little bit upon some of the top guys out of that league, and I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next couple of weeks arranging something with a certain WHL expert who has helped us out a little bit.
It doesn't narrow it down. We know a lot of WHL experts.
Well, maybe a certain blonde.
Can she beat you up?
She might be able
This
to beat
doesn't
me up.
narrow it down, though.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We have a long list of that.
We're working on arranging an exact date because there's still lots going on with certain WHL teams, but
Two of them. There's
Yeah.
the Memorial Cup still going
That's
on.
right. That's right. So we'll see. But keep an eye out for future episodes of this show, probably on a Friday, a week or two from now. Until then, once again, Byron Bader with us in studio today. My buddy Ryan Pike with me to our left. And thank you to Yasmin for her efforts behind the cameras and behind the computer screens in front of us. This has been a presentation, once again, of the Prairie Toyota dealers. Go check out the Tacoma while Red Tag Days are still on until the end of May. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been another edition of Flames Nation's Prospects Filler Summer Show, The Back Burner.